Hello, I'm Kamal Santamaria and welcome to Rewind. Behind me, the city of Doha, where 10 years ago we launched Al Jazeera English. And we've been coming here to the Museum of Islamic Art to revisit some of the best documentaries we've made in that past decade. To a large extent, our life chances are determined by where we're born. Today's Rewind first aired back in 2010, 3 years after Israel began its pitiless blockade of the Gaza Strip. For Palestinians living in the tight confines of an enclave, starved of adequate medical resources, a simple thing like the birth of a new child can become a matter of life and death when they can't get access to the treatment both baby or mother needs. Al Jazeera's Casey Kaufmann told the story of one such family in his very personal film, Born in Gaza.
This is a society at the mercy of a political conflict. This is a story of one young family in a situation that is beyond their control. The expectation of a new baby. It's a feeling of excitement and apprehension that all parents experience. But for Amal and Asad, the pregnancy of this second child means much more. I first met Amal and Asad al-Masloum 1 year ago at a children's hospital in Gaza City. And the story of their first child is one that I will never forget. This is their first child, Firaz, when he was 19 months old. He was born with 2 holes in his heart, and his parents' lives were dedicated to his care.
دكتور لهذا للدكتور هذا وبعدين من الإشاعة للدكتورة للقسم جيب الأغراض حضر الشنطة جيب غدا جيب فطور جيب شوكو جيب دواء جيب مش عارف ايش يعني بالضبط هيك كلها روح وتعال روح وتعال روح وتعال واحد مثلا هو واحد متجوزين جديد يعني وفيش يوم يعني كويس شفناه يعني طول حياتنا عنا دواء وما دواء واعمل الدواء وركز وابصر الشو وكل يوم دواء وكل يوم صيدليه ومش يعني هيك والله اللي من الله ما احلى هيك يعني متقبل.
Firaz's condition could have been fixed by routine surgery, but Israel's siege on the Gaza Strip has crippled the medical system here. These doctors don't have the training or equipment to perform the necessary operation.
كان روح متابعة برضه بإسرائيل راح مرة وكان مفروض بعدين بعد فترة يعني إنه يطلع مرة تانية يعني لمتابعة بإسرائيل.
But Gaza is blocked off from the outside world. And Firaz never made it back to Israel for his heart operation. His parents say the request to cross the border was turned down 6 times because his case was never considered an emergency. But then Firaz's condition started to quickly deteriorate. His doctors here couldn't help him anymore. The only solution was to send him to an advanced hospital in Israel. And now, it was urgent.
I mean, if you can take him today, it'll be better.
An Israeli hospital accepted the doctor's request, and Assad started a race against time to get his son out of Gaza.
هلقيت هي جاني فكس، انا هلقيت وقتي لسه. في تنسيق مع ايرز مع الدكتور في المستشفى.
عشان تكون الصورة يا سعد انت ابويا الاسرائيليين بيقولوكاش اللي تكون الصورة الشخصية على شهادة الميلاد.
مش
الصورة الشخصية. لا المريض نفسه تاع الطفل يدخلوش الحالة ورجعوهم الا تكون الصورة الأصلية موجودة هنا.
فيش صورة أصلية عندك للولد؟
ماشي شكرا كثير.
شو اسمه أحمد؟
هذول ما لهمش لازمة.
لقيت وين انت رايح؟
بتدوروا على الظهر، بدي اجيب الصورة اصغرها بعدين اطلع اجيكوا على عند القائد. اما اللي بعث لي صور فراس الكبار تنتين على الباب، هلقيت ابعتيهم على الباب تحت. يا سلام. هاي بتتفاجأ، مفاجآت هذه يعني بتطلع معك، يعني بيكون ضل الوقت 5 دقائق قبل ما يسكر بفاجئك بشغلة بدك تروح، يمكن نروح الميعاد عشان قصة الصورة بس.
يعني مش حاجة طبيعية بالمرة.
نهائيا.
6 صور.
بديش الواحد يعني تعبه كله هذا يروح بالفاضي، يعني انه روح وتعال وجيب وصور وروح على المستشفى وتعمل المستشفى وعلى الفاضي. والله ما انا مصدق بهالصراحه، يعني الحمد لله مشيت الامور، سهلت الحمد لله.
Amal started to prepare for the trip to Israel. She was ready to travel alone with her son. Only one person is allowed to accompany a child patient. It's another rule of the system.
حاسة بالخوف والقلق إني بدي أروح على مكان ما بعرفوش، بس حاسة بالقوة إني عشان بدي أكون واقفة جنبه، بده يعمل العملية وأنا جنبه ويطلع منها بالسلامة، ما يرجعش على المستشفى بالمرة. يعني كان قضى كل السنتين هدول هو بالمستشفى ونايم في المستشفى وإبر وتعب وسهر. إن شاء الله يا رب برجع بالسلامة.
As Amal was going back to the hospital to meet her son for the trip to the border, she received an urgent call and was told there was a complication.
والله حرام عليكم، والله حرام عليكم، خليها تيجي تطلع برجع.
The drive to the hospital in Israel would have only taken an hour. But after nearly 3 hours of obstacles and delays, Firaz's journey never began. The tragedy of Firaz and his parents, having been captured on camera, was soon on the evening news.
ولبحث موضوع قضية هذا المساء تنضم إلينا من مدينة غزة أمال المظلوم والدة الطفل فراس والدكتور حسن خلف وكيل وزارة الصحة في حكومة حماس المقالة. أمال، بداية في الواقع لا أجد الكلمات التي يمكن أن نعزيك بها. أنا والدة تماما مثلك لبنت هي في عمر فراس رحمة الله عليه. لا أجد الكلمات التي أصيغ بها أي سؤال. أي كلمات لديك أنت تقولينها للعالم الذي يشاهد والبعض منه يتفرج؟
بتمنى انه كل طفل شفته تعبان جنب طفلي في المستشفى انه يتعالج ويطلع من حقه انه يعيش، من حقه انه يعني يتعالج ويلاقي الدواء المناسب له، ما يموتش وينازع قدام امه زي ما صار معايا. شفته هو بينازع قبالي بس ما كانش بايدي طالع حاجه، مش قادره اعمل له حاجه. بتمنى كل الاطفال اللي بيعانوا من وجع ومن تعب انه حقهم يطلعوا ويتعالجوا في اي مكان مناسب لعلاجهم.
ونحن كثير تأخرنا.
راس الجالين كثير كويس، ما فيش أي مشاكل ذات أهمية طبية يعني. نازل في الحوض؟ نازل في الحوض.
الطفل طبيعي والحمد لله كويس. بالنسبة للرأس طبيعية جدا، القلب طبيعي جدا، كل ضرباته كويسة، الخلاصة في مكانها، تقوم بالسلامة ويكون في اليوم المتوقع للولادة وتكون ولادة سهلة وميسرة وما يكونش ولادة عسيرة الحمد لله.
والله بصراحة تامر ما بقدر أحكي إشي هالقيت نهائياً إلا لما أشوف الولد واطمئن عليه، غير هيك فيش عندي كلام صراحة. وفي الآخر في الأول والآخر الواحد بقول اللي من الله يا محلاه والله.
As Amal enters her final stage of pregnancy, I decide to go to Israel. I want to meet the doctor who would have operated on Firaz the year before. This border keeps the Palestinians inside Gaza. And it's what stood between Firaz and his chance at life. Only a few hundred meters separate Gaza and Israel, but they are worlds apart. The haves and the have-nots. In Israel, there is a vibrancy and sense of potential that you can only find in a society that determines its own future. It only takes me an hour to drive from Gaza to the YASSIN Medical Center on the outskirts of Tel Aviv. This is where Firaz was supposed to have his surgery 1 year ago. And this is the cardiologist who was waiting for him. Dr. TAMIR operates on children from all over the world. And today, I found 4 young patients from Gaza.
I will help children get to us to treatment. The system will help, but the system still have to operate its defense mechanism in order to prevent bad things to happen to Israelis. So that's why I accept it, and I am not so much against it. Instead of throwing bombs, we save lives. So it's different ways of inflicting some power. If you throw a bomb and you kill, you are a powerful man. If you save life, you are powerful in the same manner. But maybe it's something that gives you strength. You take your strength from whatever you can do. I don't play with politics. I have my own political views, but this is private. I'm not really into this type of activity. I'm a physician. I swear to treat people, to help them, people who are sick, and that's what I do.
But not everybody in Israel's medical field stays out of politics. Ron Yaron and his colleagues help Palestinian patients get access to the treatment they need.
Since Israel controls the only gate out for Palestinians who seek for care unavailable, it has responsibility to let them out. Physicians for Human Rights recorded 14 cases of death-related denial access, and all these cases are recorded after the application was submitted to the Israeli authorities.
But the Israeli army's main concern is security. And Colonel MOSHE LEVI comes up with a different fact to defend the policy of closure towards the Gaza Strip.
4 from 5 requests that we received every day, we approved. So I think that this is 80% from the requirements from the Palestinian side, we approved it.
You can see it in the numbers of people who are denied. Nearly 25% of the patients who apply for exit permits are denied due to rejection or delays.
Our challenge is how to create a balance between the security needs and between the civilian needs. This is the main issue. This is the main challenge of the Israeli policy in this arena.
Granting the health right, eventually, in the long term, make my society a better place to live in. And for that, I think I do my best to help Palestinians, not only because, because they are human beings and they must enjoy, but also because as an Israeli, I feel responsibility for them.
It's 5 in the morning in Gaza City, and the Al-Masloum family is at the public hospital. Amal has just gone into labor, and she's heading with her mother-in-law to the maternity ward for women only. Assad has been waiting for 8.5 hours. Enough time for the memory of his first child's illness to creep back into his mind. But this time, there are no complications.
شد بدوش يفتح
خلاص ضلكش تعملي بدك وسخية
يطلع خفيف
مش مشاعرها
مش بقول لك شرحت لما تنسى شرحت
مش مشاعرها
Happiness has returned to this household. The new baby boy is in perfect health. And as a way to honor their first son, Amal and Assad decide to also name their second son Firaz.
Firaz.
The past 3 years of Amal's family life were filled with anxiety and sadness. But now, with a sense of relief, she looks forward to a happy future.
بدي اياه يكبر بسرعة. بدي اشوفه هيك بمراحل مثلا الزحف المشي والاشي. هي احلى اشي، هلقيتها صغار ما منتبه يعني مش كتير بشدوك الهم دائما نايمين، اما لما بكره بصيروا يزحفوا يمشوا مبين اكتر احلى يعني. وهو موجود بيننا حتى لو انه توفى، بنحسه موجود بيننا يعني بننساهوش طبعا. حتى لو اجى فراس هذا الثاني يعني.
Life goes on in Gaza. But there are thousands of people who have been denied medical treatment and left without adequate care. The blockade of the Gaza Strip is still firmly in place. And until the political situation changes, these patients will be waiting and struggling for one of the most basic rights.
7 years on, you would hope the situation would have improved for those facing serious medical issues in Gaza. That is a question for Rowan Talbot at Medical Aid for Palestinians, an organisation working to ensure equitable access to healthcare in Gaza. Rowan, thank you for joining us as we look to update this film and find out what's happened since then. 7 years ago, that was. Are you aware of any efforts by the Israelis to make it a bit easier? Have there been any developments?
Now, the situation is actually worse than it was then. So I think we can say that it's clearly been a slide. Right down to the point that I think 7 years ago, we might have been talking about roughly 20% of permits being either denied or delayed. Now, I mean, last year, the average rate was that a third of permits were denied or delayed. Actually reaching the point in December where the majority, so I think it was about 60% of permits were denied or delayed. And every denial is obviously a denial of access to care, but also delays. I mean, people usually find out whether they've been successful or not the evening before they're due to travel. So if you don't hear or you don't get a response, that effectively means you miss your appointment and you can't get to care.
Okay, so why don't you take me through the process then of getting through those checkpoints, who needs to be accompanying a child, how it all works?
If you are a patient, if you're a child, then obviously your doctor inside Gaza will recognise that you need care, and you need care that isn't currently available inside Gaza. You'll then be referred to a hospital outside. That might be in the West Bank, East Jerusalem, Jordan, even in Israel itself. There's a process of applying for the permit which requires a lot of documentation. It all has to be submitted at least 10 days before you're due to travel. You might, either as the patient, even as children, or as the accompanier going with the child, be called to a security interview, which might determine whether you're going to get a permit to get out. And then it's a waiting game. And in the majority of cases, when a child is going for treatment, they'll need someone to go with them to take care of them, to provide support inside hospital. But largely, the restrictions that are placed mean that anybody who is between 18 to 55 is unlikely to be able to get a permit. That means that usually their parents are within that age range. In fact, only about 6% of Gaza's population are over the age of 55. This is people's grandparents. But they're finding it increasingly difficult to get these permits to accompany children.
I've actually got one of your infographics here to show our viewers online here. We're talking about exiting Gaza, who can get a permit, and that graph right at the bottom showing that decline in approval rates. I mean, it's one thing that it has declined. Why has it declined quite so much in that last year? I mean, down from 80% to 50% by the looks of this graph.
We're talking about a situation of 50 years of occupation and 10 years of this blockade and closure. And over that period of time, we've seen that it's more and more difficult for patients to be able to get to care. Israel is still the occupying power in Gaza, and it has a legal responsibility and obligation under the 4th Geneva Convention to ensure that the population that it occupies have adequate access to medical care. But ultimately, it's important that we grapple with the big issues. Medical care and access to medical care and those restrictions to movement are part and parcel of a wider problem, and that wider problem is a decade of blockade. And I mean, we can see the impact on that, not just in terms of the immediate ability of people to get out to care, but also their ability to access care inside Gaza. I mean, roughly at any given time, 25% of medicines are at zero stock inside Gaza. These are essential medicines, chemotherapy medicines, basic pain medications, because the economic situation inside Gaza now is so serious, this perpetual crisis, that the Ministry of Health can't keep them on the shelves.
Rowan Talbot from Medical Aid for Palestinians. We thank you very much for joining us on Rewind. And that is it for this week's Rewind. If you want to catch the rest of the films in the series, you can find them on the Rewind page at aljazeera.com. Also, please leave your own comments on our Facebook page at AJ Rewind. But for now, until next time, goodbye.